get a job acting, because that's what I really want to do. And I had a meeting at my agent's with this new guy. He was just promoted, and I had known him. He'd been an assistant, but I sort of knew him a little bit. But I walked into his office, and the thing on his desk, the first time I met him, was a paper that described this show called Rapp. And what Rapp was at that time was a 10-performance, 3-week workshop at the New York Theater Workshop. And when it shows a workshop, it means that it's not open for critics. It's open to the public, those people who can get tickets. But it's a very abbreviated process to sort of get the show together, to put it on its feet in a very limited fashion with a minimal set, minimal costumes, minimal lights, sound, whatever you need to sort of get a sense of where it is in its development and to get a sense of what the audience response is. And tickets are discounted to what they would normally be in the normal run. But it's still, it's a good opportunity as an actor to sort of be a part of the creation of something. And as I said, I was working at Starbucks. So it was, right away, at least intriguing. When it said on the sheet that it was a rock opera, that was a little concerning, because rock, that phrase, doesn't necessarily mean good things. But it was, interesting, and it mentioned that there were characters with HIV in the show, and I thought, that's interesting. That could also sort of be cheesy and terrible. It was clear from looking at the description that it could sort of tip in either direction. I was also familiar with who the director was, Michael Greif, from having seen a play that he directed that was really good, and so I was kind of excited about that. But and I hadn't done a musical in New York since I moved there when I was a teenager. I had done musicals when I was a kid, and no one in New York I felt really sort of knew that I could sing, so I was like, that's kind of cool, maybe I could do a musical. So I had to, for my audition, I had to prepare a rock and roll and pop song, which is also different. Normally when you audition for musicals, you have to do something from, Sondheim or later or something. So I was like, let me do a song that I kind of like, that I would certainly suit my voice, but that I would enjoy singing. So I was a big fan of R.E.M. Do you guys know R.E.M. from classic radio? They're still putting out stuff, but their heyday was the late 80s, early 90s, which was when you were 5 years old, 7 years old. But R.E.M. So Losing My Religion was the song I sang. So I went into my audition, and how many people in the room are actors? So quite a few. Okay. So I tell this to you guys, but I also, this is really for anybody who ever does a job interview or any kind of situation where you sort of put yourself out there. I tell this to actors to really make a point, and you'll know what it is in a second. I sang my audition. I was in the middle of singing my audition song, Losing My Religion, and I jumped a verse. I totally screwed up. I went to this other place in the song. Luckily, my accompanist sort of followed me along, and he was right there with me. But I knew that I screwed up. The point is, I got called back. The point is, you don't have to be perfect in auditions. You don't have to be perfect in a job interview situation, unless the person interviewing you is a total asshole. In my mind, I've sat on the other side of the table in auditions, and I can tell you, it's not about whether the person screws up or not, or is perfect. It's about whether or not they bring themselves forth in the most interesting way, if they're alive, if they're, obviously if they're talented, but the other things are more sort of, the feeling you get, the vibe you get from someone. So happily, even though I screwed up, I got called back on the spot, and I had to take home a cassette tape